In this tutorial, I'll present a brief overview of how to check the originality of student work with Turnitin. Checking the originality of any student work is really quite simple in Schoology. You simply navigate to the course that has the assignment that you would like to check, and in the left-hand column of that course you'll see Turnitin. When you click on Turnitin, it opens up the Turnitin integration right within Schoology. You can check on how original your student's work is. Notice also that every task that you created, I've only created one for this course, but every task that you create, the student submits assignments for, will be checked through Turnitin. Now this is the task. Notice over here status says synced. Often that will be automatically done. Occasionally you will have to click sync or resync. Sometimes that takes a few minutes, especially if a student has submitted an assignment in a format that is not accepted by Turnitin. Occasionally you may have an error simply because one student has not submitted an assignment in the format that is accepted by Turnitin. So click on Task 2. I only have one student in this course, and that is Kimmy Smith. I will click on her name and we'll get a report of her originality. Now notice straight off the bat for this assignment, she has a similarity of 78%. That means 78% of her assignment is similar to other assignments found on the internet. Now let's have a closer look. We'll click on View Report, and that opens up another page directly within Turnitin. We can have a closer look at her assignment. This is the Turnitin Originality Report window, and you can see here, let's just zoom in a bit, you can see that it's color-coded according to source. Source number 3 seems to come from directessays.com, and if we click on that, number 3, we can see just those bits that do appear in the other source. We can also click on Full Source View if you want to have a look at just where the copied material appears in the original document. Click X to get out of it. Let's have a look at Old English literature. That seems like it might be a trusted source. So let's click on the little arrow, and 20% of the document comes from that, but we also realize that it's not the only place on the web that that material appears. It appears in a number of places. And notice as you scroll down, some of these sources are a lower percentage, meaning the similarity is less for some reason. Let's have a look at Scribd, for example. We can see that only some of the words are purple. Let's look at Full Source View. Notice that this person who's submitted the assignment through Scribd has replaced some of the original language with his or her own language. For example, who was once forced to flee London under sketchy circumstances was originally who was once forced to flee London under suspect circumstances. So you can see that if some of the material is changed, often you can still see similarities. Click on X to get out of it. You can also decide, for example, that perhaps this particular source doesn't count for you, that you don't think it's plagiarism, that you think they use the source correctly. So you can exclude the sources by clicking on Exclude Source, if you like, and that source will be excluded. If we click down here, you can filter out things. For example, you can filter out quotes. Often some of the material that seems to be similar is similar simply because it is a quote. Exclude quotes, exclude bibliography, and click on Apply Changes. And that may or may not affect the similarity report. If you go down here to the printer icon, you can see that you can download a copy of this report for printing, which we'll look at more in a minute. Click back up here in the Schoology tab and see that you can go right back into Schoology and make comments on the original text. Let's go back to the original version and Turnitin and look at a couple more features of Turnitin. One is called GradeMark. GradeMark allows you to put in pre-existing comments as well as your own comments directly on the student paper. However, this does not integrate with Schoology. These comments will stay, but they won't appear in Schoology. For these, you'll have to navigate to the Turnitin.com website. PeerMark, if enabled, allows students to comment on each other's own work. GradeMark and PeerMark duplicate features that already exist in Schoology, but some teachers find them very useful. Now let's have a look at the view from a student's perspective with Turnitin. This is the login of Kimmy Smith, my student. She has submitted the assignment. We'll click on Turnitin, and she may get this authorization dialog box. She'll click Approve. And there's a couple of versions of this document here. We'll click on View Report. She will have a user agreement to agree to. Click I agree. And she will get a very similar report, if not the same report, to what I see as a teacher. Click down here on the printer icon and download a digital receipt or the current view of the originality report. So let's download the current view for printing. I'm going to save file. The file is being downloaded to wherever you set it up to download. Each browser works somewhat differently. It may go into your downloads folder. Now I can have a look at the PDF download of the originality report. Most likely it's gone into my downloads folder unless I've told it to go elsewhere. Double click on that and I can have a look at the originality report